Welcome to the AI Executive Brief. I'm Stephen Forte. On today's episode, Meta installed surveillance software on every U.S. employee laptop to harvest their workflows. As AI training data, the CTO confirmed there is no opt-out. And the European Union is the only reason any Meta employee anywhere is allowed to keep their keystrokes to themselves. One story today. It deserves the runtime. Last week, the journalist Casey Newton, he covers the tech industry's quieter cruelties at Platformer, the independent newsletter that has become the closest thing this industry has to an honest weekly diary, published a piece on something called the Model Capability Initiative, MCI for short. It is software Meta has now installed on the work laptop of every US-based employee. It captures mouse movements, it captures keystrokes, it captures clicks, and periodically it takes a screenshot of whatever is on the screen. The stated purpose, in Meta's own words, is to train AI agents to use computers the way humans use computers. The unstated purpose is the part that should hold your attention for the next 12 minutes. Let me give you the second piece of context, because the two pieces only mean something together. The same week MCI rolled out, Meta confirmed it is laying off roughly 8,000 people, about 10% of the workforce. It will leave another 6,000 open roles unfilled. And in the same window, the company disclosed it plans to spend up to $135 billion this year on AI infrastructure. 8,000 people out, $135 billion in. And on the way out the door, the remaining employees are being asked to demonstrate click by click exactly how they do their jobs. Here's the lens for today. The interesting fact about MCI is not that Meta did it. Of course Meta did it. The interesting fact is that Meta did it without an opt-out clause. The European Union stopped them at the border, and the United States did not. Let me walk through the facts. Andrew Bosworth, Meta's chief technology officer, known internally as Boz, the man who runs the AI and reality lab side of the company, sent the memo. In it, he describes the future shape of work at Meta. Agents, he writes, will primarily do the work. Humans will direct, review, and help them improve. That is the org chart. The agents are the labor. The remaining humans are middle management for the agents. An employee asked in the internal forum whether there was a way to opt out. Bosworth's answer in full: no, there is no opt-out on your work-provided laptop. Another employee asked about exposure of personal information, health data, financial data, things people sometimes glance at during a workday. Bosworth's answer: if you are worried about it, do not check your personal email on your work computer. Another employee asked whether the program had passed a privacy review. Bosworth's answer: this project completed a privacy review. Not sure what kind you mean, but the usual kind? The usual kind. Filed under. Questions you do not want answered with that level of confidence. There is one functional opt-out. You can move to Europe. GDPR, the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, the privacy law that turned every website you visit into a cookie consent maze, also happens to forbid this kind of granular employee surveillance. Meta cannot ship MCI to its EU staff. As Newton put it, GDPR turns out to have been about more than cookie banners. A European Meta employee and an American Meta employee will, this quarter, be doing the same job under materially different legal regimes. The American gets a software update, the European gets a privacy framework, same company, same job, different continents. Now let me give honest credit, because it is earned. Bosworth could have hidden this. The legal latitude exists in the United States to roll out workplace monitoring software without telling employees what it is for. He did not. He told them, he named the program, he described what it captures, what it is for, and where the data flows. He answered hostile questions in writing on the record in a forum he knew would leak. In an industry where the standard playbook is to ship the surveillance and let the discovery happen quarters later, in a 10K footnote, Bosworth wrote a memo. Give him that. The transparency is real. It is also the only thing in this story that is reassuring, and we should be honest about how thin that is. Now to the part that earns the lens. In the Stasi files in East Germany, the regime kept records on roughly a third of the population. Handwritten observations where people went, who they spoke to, what they typed, on which typewriter, at what hour of the night. There is a film about this, The Lives of Others, the 2006 German film about surveillance under the East German secret police. It won the 2007 Oscar for Best Foreign Film. If you have not seen it, watch it this weekend. It is the best 2-hour briefing on what a surveillance state actually feels like that has ever been made. The Stasi needed a state apparatus to pull that off. Tens of thousands of officers, decades of work, filing cabinets that filled buildings, indexed by hand, audited by clerks whose entire job was to keep the index honest. Meta deployed the functional equivalent over a long weekend. A memo on a Monday, a software update on Tuesday. By Friday, every U.S. employee laptop was a recording device, keystrokes, clicks, periodic screenshots, and Meta called it a productivity initiative. The instrument changed, the intent rhymes. That is the comparison that has to land before any of the rest of this makes sense. Not because Meta is the Stasi, it isn't, and the analogy is not a moral equivalence. It is a logistics observation. What used to require a totalitarian state in 40 years now requires a corporate IT push and a long weekend. The cost curve on observation has collapsed. The legal architecture protecting the observed has not kept up, at least not on this side of the Atlantic. There is a name for the company that Meta is becoming, and Meta already owns it. In June of last year, Meta paid $14.3 billion for a 49% stake in Scale AI, the data labeling company that built its business by paying contractors around the world to perform tasks while their workflows were captured in order to produce training data for the AI labs. Meta installed Scale's CEO Alexander Wang to run its new superintelligence team. Scale's entire thesis was that the bottleneck for the next generation of AI is not compute, it is workflow data. There is, in Wang's own words from a 2024 interview, no pool of really valuable agent data just sitting around anywhere. So Meta bought the company that turns work into training data. And then Meta became that company. MCI is Scale AI pointed inward. The contractors used to be the raw material. Now the full-time employees are too. It is a Russian doll, and the doll on the inside is wearing your badge. A small recursive observation offered without comment. Mark Zuckerberg also has a work-provided laptop. One assumes the CEO's mouse movements are also technically training data. Whether the model learns to acquire competitors or to wear a hooded sweatshirt at congressional testimony, history will judge. Here's my read. Every CEO listening to this is in the next 18 months going to face a version of the question Bosworth answered out loud last week. It is not the question you think it is. It is not, should we monitor employees? That framing is the easy one and the wrong one. The real question is this. Every company that builds a useful internal AI agent needs proprietary training data because the public models will be commodity and the proprietary workflow data will be the moat. Where does yours come from? Meta is not the first company to ask that question. Meta is the first to answer it out loud in a memo with no opt-out. The other companies are working on the answer right now. Most of them have not decided whether to tell anyone. If I were sitting in your seat this quarter, I would do two things. First, write your policy before you need it, not for PR, for you, one page. What workflow data does your company collect from its own employees today? What would you collect tomorrow if your CTO came to you with an MCI proposal? And what is the line you will not cross? Write it down before a vendor pitches you the line. The companies that will get this right are the ones that decided what they believed before the technology forced the answer. Second, take this conversation to your CHRO this week. Not your CIO, your CHRO. If you are going to capture any workflow data for AI training, the difference between a workforce that tolerates it and a workforce that quietly poisons the data is whether you told them in your own words before the software showed up. Bosworth got the transparency right. He got the consent architecture wrong. You can do both. This is a labor question wearing an IT costume, and rooting it to the CIO is how good companies sleepwalk into bad memos. The Stasi needed 40 years and a country. Meta needed a long weekend and a memo. The technology that collapses that gap is sitting on every laptop your company issues. Decide now what you will pay for the workflow data your AI strategy depends on and what you will not ask for at any price. That is the AI Executive Brief for Thursday, April 30th, 2026. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I will be back Friday with more. Until then, stay sharp.